Are you having a problem getting deals? Are you having a problem getting supplies? Well, we are hanging out with the guy who can get you supplies. Ricky Ho, what's going on?
Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, so we're kind of helping a lot of businesses scrambling right now on tariffs to help them find alternative suppliers. So definitely excited to share what we're working on.
So I like this mainly because you're only 27 and you're going to be the next billionaire. But I like your platform. I like what you have going on. Sounds like it's really really smart. First, before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself so we can kind of dovetail into what you have going on.
Yeah, so I grew up in a manufacturing family. My family's been kind of in manufacturing for over 40 years. I studied undergrad in industrial engineering and software engineering at UC Berkeley. I actually dropped out my second year to start my first company. So my first company was also a software business. We basically helped large retailers digitize their supply chain to better collaborate with their existing suppliers. Instead of having all this data in email, we basically digitize their entire collaboration process. I did that for over 5 years, and then I sold the company last year, and then to a private equity, and we started Source Ready soon after that. And with Source Ready, essentially, the pain point that I've realized is that the process of finding suppliers, both domestically and overseas, an extremely difficult, relationship-driven, offline, convoluted process. And my prediction is that people are going to try to find suppliers outside of China. China has the benefit of Alibaba. There's like websites where you can search for factories. But if you think about most countries, like let's say you wanted to find a supplier in Mexico or like in Vietnam or Cambodia, there aren't websites like that. They don't exist. There is no Alibaba of Mexico. This is why like people still go to trade shows. People still like ask for relationships and say, "Hey, do you know a factory in this region or this country?" So I think it was quite obvious to me that like there needs to be like a Google search for supplier data, so that people can more easily identify potential suppliers, globally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty smart. It's pretty smart. So really, what you're saying? Let's say I'm working for Nordstrom's or Sears or I don't even know if Kmart's still around, and I need a bunch of shirts or whatever. I'm oversimplifying. Just go with me here. Instead of me calling my buddy, hey, do you know a supplier? Do you know someone who can manufacture this? Do you know someone who can make this? You are going to digitize it, in effect, make it data driven. So I get on your platform, I assume, and then search for a cool uh, let's say a cool manufacturer in Malaysia as an example, making that up. Boom. Versus me calling a bunch of guys, them not calling me back, me doing an RFP, going and knocking on the door of the manufacturing plant, getting nowhere. It's going to be a lot quicker, cheaper because I'm dealing with something that you have, that being a platform. All sound right?
Exactly. I think you identified the exact problem. And if you think about it, like most suppliers don't even have a website. So it's like the
Hmm.
part of the problem with this industry is that the manufacturers themselves are not very digital. They're not very digitized, right? And this is why it's so hard to find information about them. So kind of what we started out doing was how do we get this data? How do we find out where this Malaysian supplier is, who they are, what their contact info is, what products do they offer, what customers do they work with? And then we realized that there's actually a lot of sources of data that we can get directly from, government agencies, from trade show data, from sources of data that traditionally were actually unavailable to the general public. So if you think about like customs data, every time you import any good into the U.S., you have to file with U.S. Customs to say, okay, where did this product come from? What product was it? And then based on the type of product, you have to pay tariffs or pay duties. And then you have to declare it, right? You have to declare it to customs. This data is actually something that you can buy. This is actually very surprising, right? Because it's actually very sensitive data. You can literally see where people are importing their products for how much they're importing it for.
Hmm.
Um, but there's actually an entire process that you can go through to acquire this data. And once you have this data, it's very, very valuable because you can essentially map out the entire supply chain. You can figure out, that specific supplier in Malaysia that exported at one point to another customer in the US. And not only can you find out who they are, you can even spy on your competitors. You can figure out where are my competitors sourcing their products from. So I think this is a very interesting industry where this data that traditionally was unavailable to the general public, once it is available, I think it will level the playing ground for a lot of people.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think most of our listeners and viewers are real estate investors. Usually they're some are real estate agents. So I'm not sure if that many people are going to be looking for a supply chain software. Number one, but sadly for you. But number two, what I would say is Someone can learn from you as a business guy. I know you're only 27, which blows me away that you're such a stud at this age. I'm proud of you. Nice work, kid, right? But what I would say is what you're doing is you're fulfilling a need. You're bringing in for a client a cheaper solution, I think a quicker solution and an easier solution that I don't think there's really anyone in the marketplace. So that's really something that a real estate agent should be thinking about, looking for a niche that is wide open, and what you're doing is adding value right off the bat to any client in your sphere.
Yeah, and I think one of the approaches that I took was like, um, are there any like what barrier to entry can we create that makes it hard for other people to copy us? And one of the things that we found that was quite interesting is that this data acquisition is actually very difficult. And most people actually told us that like this is not possible. Like, there's no way they're gonna get this data. It's gonna be very, very hard. It's very bureaucratic. And we're like, no, we're gonna spend 4 months. We're gonna figure out who to contact, how to get the data. We're gonna buy it no matter what. And then once you get the data, then you basically create for yourself a unique moat, like something that where other people, if they wanted to replicate what we do, they have to go through the same hoops, the same trouble, the same complexity, and most people don't want to go through that hoop. So I think like for me, if I'm starting a business, I really don't want to be in commoditized businesses. Like if I'm just doing what everyone else is doing, you have to work really really hard, and you have to it's very hard to have a good margin and a good buying power. But I think in this day and age, especially with AI, it's important to find places in the market where there's a gap, and sometimes difficulty is good. Like you want to find things where that is not too easy to do, but you have some unique insight on, and then that unique insight or that difficulty can actually be a long term competitive advantage for you.
Yeah, so you mentioned AI because I know your business it looked like saw the website. It looks like you're using AI. Let's talk about that. What are your thoughts on AI and how are you deploying it as you should be? Or and what can you do to deploy it better? I'm using that in the context of some of the people who are real estate agents or investors out there who should be using AI and probably aren't. Get it?
So I think first of all, AI is becoming a commodity. So all these different AI tools, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT, they're all more or less the same in general. I think the way you use it, how you prompt the AI, how you use it, is actually what differentiates a good use case and a bad use case. And I think AI is one of those things where there are scenarios where AI is a superhuman. Like it can do things in which humans can, even if you had 100 people, they would not be able to do. For example, AI's knowledge it knows everything basically on the internet at the same time. I think this is not something that you can do even if you were to hire a bunch of people, right? So this is one thing. And the second thing I would say is that people do believe that AI hallucinates, but it's my belief that humans hallucinate as well, and that a human that understands the nuances of the AI is going to perform much better than someone not using AI. So
Mhm.
I think that if you're not using AI, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage because the person that is using AI is basically a superhuman. He can do things that traditionally
Mhm.
would have taken a huge team of people, or even if he had a huge team, he probably wouldn't been able to do because AI
Mhm.
has these superhuman capabilities, like knowing the all the knowledge in the world, and being able to concisely and personalize responding to that. So I think there's just so much productivity potential with AI. And I give some examples. Like I have another friend of mine who's also like a startup owner, and he's doing like $14 million this year. And his company is like 4 people. And like he told me if he didn't have AI, he would probably have to hire like 40, 50 people to get the same scale. So I think with AI, it's possible now to actually be very lean. Like you don't need that many people. You only need
Mhm.
few people with very good context. And then the rest of this like manual work can be done by AI. And if you think about most companies, honestly, most people are just doing administrative stuff. Like
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
You're
right?
right.
Like, there's only a couple people really making decisions. And I think what's gonna change now is that small businesses now can scale up without scaling up headcount. So you can
Mhm.
be a $20 million a year business with, like, 3 people. I don't think that was possible 4 or 5 years ago. Like, as you scale up, traditionally, you would just have to keep hiring people. So then your management, and it's not just the payroll cost. As you hire more people, the cost of managing these people is also very high. Um, but I think with AI now, it's like I think you'll see more and more of these small teams doing incredible things. Um, and yeah, I think that's where AI has a lot of potential.
I totally agree with you. Like, you have 14 people, it sounds like right now, And as we have a small group and we're bringing in 80 new clients a month, there's no way we'd be able to do that and service clients all over the country without AI. And I think that, and we all we do here at vastsolutionsgroup.com is use artificial intelligence to help people with their finances, essentially. And if it weren't for AI, we wouldn't be able to help as many people or as well without AI. It blows me away that some people are still like, I don't want to use AI. There's mistakes, or what
Yeah.
is it? Or they're afraid of it. I think just like you said, you've got to adopt AI. If you're not, you're going to be lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And I think the people that are fear that AI will replace them or whatever, I don't think AI will replace people completely. I think the people that know how to use AI will replace the people that don't. I think that's
Right.
the fear. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like if you don't know how to use computers today. Imagine 20 years ago when, personal computers first became very popular. Imagine if you didn't learn how to use a computer. Like, how would you even find a job today? You wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to work. I think AI is in the same realm. Like, if you're not proficient at using AI, um, then literally you're gonna be 10x less productive than everyone else that does. And I would say the scale is even a lot different. Like, I think with personal computers, there's a kind of a limit of how good you can be. Like, Excel, everyone is more or less the same to a certain extent. I think with AI is actually very different. I think people that are very good at AI can be 100x more productive, even than an average person. Like, and you don't need
Mhm.
like very, very specialized schooling. I think with AI, you just need to be very good at um you first of all, you have to know exactly what you want, and then I think you have to be very good at reasoning. And if you're very good at like kind of general logic and common sense. But if you have good common sense, I think just understanding the nuances of AI will allow you to be a lot more productive than if you didn't have it.
I'll even take it a step further and say, uh, common sense can be provided by the AI, but but I would say is if you're, good at working with AI, it will increase your productivity way more than someone who's just an average person working with AI. And you might as well adopt AI, practice it, et cetera, because you'll be glad you did. So, okay, so all right, what's tomorrow? What's in store for tomorrow for Ricky Ho? What's going to happen with your company? What do you want to do down the road? Because you're such an interesting study in in entrepreneurialism, I might as well ask that question.
Yeah, I think, we want our product and our solution to be, to impact more and more businesses. Like my belief is that we want to help a lot of small businesses, especially,
Mm,
find better sources of suppliers. And I think right now, a lot of small businesses are hugely impacted by tariffs. They have to pay, 20, $30,000 worth of tariff duties just to get their product, from the port. And I think supply chain is one of those really opaque, complicated things that most people don't actually really understand. And I think what we're trying to do with AI is to bring the power back to the small business because for big companies, they have huge teams of people that are professionally trained on how to manage the supply chain. But if you're a small business, you're doing everything yourself. You're importing, you're finding suppliers, you're having to navigate these tariffs. You're not going to have the budget to hire a team of people, experienced supply chain people to do this for you. Um, but I think with AI, you don't need to hire this team anymore. AI is
mm,
actually very, very knowledgeable. It knows all the tariff rates. With our platform, we can even help you find the specific suppliers. And I think this is
mm.
what's very interesting to me. Like, how can we help millions of businesses around the U.S. To basically build a better, more resilient supply chain? And yeah, like that's I think that's my goal for the next 6 years.
So, and you mentioned the platform. Let's go over that a little bit. So, first, I always forget, how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in getting a hold of you, first of all?
Yeah, they can go to sourceready.com. We have a book a demo page. If they book a demo, I'll be the one kind of showing the demo. They can also add me on LinkedIn. Search Ricky Ho, Source Ready. Feel free to follow, connect. I'd be happy to share any of my experiences. Yeah, so those were the two main ways.
And it's SourceReady, SOURCEREADY.com.
Correct.
Okay. And Ricky Ho. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your platform. Let's say I'm a small business owner and I need, I don't know, shoes or shoe materials out of somewhere. Tell me a little bit about how I use the platform, kind of some logistics.
Yeah, so the user experience is actually very much similar to like ChatGPT. You have a natural language interface. You can directly type your requirements. You can say, "Hey, I want to find a supplier for shoe parts in a low tariff country," and the AI
Okay.
will automatically identify what countries for this particular shoe part has the lowest tariffs, and then it will directly search in our database. So we have over 2.4 million factories in our database, and it will
Mhm.
search for the suppliers that specifically match our requirements.
Mm.
So maybe let's say Vietnam is the region where with the lowest tariff for shoe parts. It will search in the database for all the Vietnam suppliers that can make that specific part you're looking for. It would build you a
Mhm.
list of all the top suppliers in that specific category. And then instead of you having to find the email contact and reach out to each supplier and asking them, hey, can you make this? What is your best price? Our AI can integrate with your email and do this outreach at scale for you. So the AI can talk to 100 something
Mhm.
suppliers, go back and forth with each one, and then you wake up the next morning with quotes cleanly organized and prices across all these different suppliers. So we take you from an idea to a quote in the span of a couple clicks, and
Mhm.
that work traditionally would have taken you hundreds of hours, if
Yeah.
not more. And for most businesses, you wouldn't even be able to do it because you just don't have the information.
Dude, you are a supply chain disruptor. I mean, seriously. I mean, that's really that's huge. So, wow. I mean, and at what cost? I might as well ask the cost. Let's say I'm a small business owner. I don't know. Let's say I'm grossing, I don't know, $10 million a year. I don't I'm just throwing out that number. What's a cost for me to look for a shoe supplier? I don't know.
Yeah, so we have a very flexible and broad spectrum of pricing. We start at like $25 a month. So, the price of a meal, you can get started. And that $25 will get you a quote.
Mm,
Something that if you weren't using our platform, I could guarantee you'd probably
yeah,
be spending thousands of hours in labor cost,
totally.
in getting a quote. And what we're trying to do is give you such a high return on investment that there is no reason why you wouldn't use it. And we're so confident, we even have a free version where you can trial a preview of the platform. And we're almost very confident that if you did try it, you would want to upgrade to at least the minimum entry tier.
Yeah, well, I should have asked this earlier, but what about upgrades and changes? Because I mean, people are changing all the time. Obviously, changing jobs, manufacturing plants, etc.
Yeah.
How often do you update that?
So our data is updated on a weekly basis.
Huh.
So you'll never have data that's more than a week old. And we get data from the government on a daily basis, like a dump of data. So, for example, from customs data, you can literally see on a daily level the new shipments coming in the U.S.
You mean in general, or you mean like if I order a shipment? No, you would. It
If
would
you
mean in
ordered a
general.
shipment, we would see in our platform too, not because you told us, but because the government would tell us. Because like literally we have 85 million shipments, like rows of data in our system. Whenever there is a container coming into America, we will have that data in our system. We will know where did that container come from? What ship was it on? What port did it arrive at? Who is the importer of record? Who is the exporter of record? What is the price of that product? What is the weight of that product? What's in the container? We have all that information.
Dude, that's cool. Now I get it. I missed the boat on that. That's really cool. I mean, and there's no one in the marketplace basically who's doing what you're doing. Bottom line.
There are companies selling this data, but they're selling it for very, very expensive prices. Like we're talking about Wall Street. So for example, there's a S&P, the S&P 500, right? The company behind that. They're a data company, so they sell data. They sell the supply chain data to Wall Street because Wall Street will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for this data to predict the stock market. So you can imagine if I know Walmart is importing a lot more than they did last year, then I can use that as an indicator to say, hey, if they're importing all these goods, it's probably because their sales are good, right? So they use that data to actually predict the stock, and this is why the price of this data is so high because traditionally the companies that buy this data are like Wall Street or like these hedge funds with infinite pockets. But your average small Joe in the Midwest, you're not going to have this data. You don't have data access to like customs data to see who is importing from where. So I think this is where we want to
Mhm.
democratize this. We want this to be widely available to anyone that wants to see this data.
Yeah, by the way, that's what I meant. There's no one in your marketplace, in your theater. So, all right. So, what's one thing as we get ready to close the door on this episode? What's one thing we have not talked about that you think can add value to a small business owner in any way?
Um,
Hard
yeah, I
question, by
think
the
I,
way.
I think my number one advice is embrace AI. I think not just for
Ah, there you go.
not just our tool. I think you should be using AI across the spectrum. You should think about how can I use AI in customer service? How can I use AI for sales? If you're a physical product business, how do I use AI to find better suppliers? Like I think AI is one of those things where every function that you have in your company can in some way be improved by AI. And if you're not doing that today, I think you should be. Like you should 100% be doing this. And you would it's much better to invest in AI than invest in payroll, in my opinion. Like, not to say you shouldn't hire people. Like if you need to hire people, you should hire people. But I think the cost of being wrong with using AI is a lot lower than the cost of being wrong, hiring the wrong person. So I think for a lot of tasks, instead of because a lot of companies, I think the first thing they think is, oh, there's a lot more work now. Let's hire another person. Instead of thinking like that, say, can this work actually be automated? Can we use AI to do a lot of this? Only when AI cannot, then you think about, okay, then I should hire someone to use AI to do this thing. So I think that is the mentality that people need to have. And obviously, when people think about AI, they only think about ChatGPT. They only think about, the popular things. But there's actually a lot of specialized AI tools in the market, right? I'm sure there's AI for real estate, AI for sales, AI for, in our case, supply chain. There are a lot of specialized tools that would actually outperform ChatGPT by a wide margin. So don't only use ChatGPT. There's all types of tools out there that you should be looking at and researching for your specific business function that I think would be very, very beneficial to the business.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, Ricky Ho, because you're exactly right. Because we're big believers in AI. We've been so for a while. We know that it helps lower tax liability. In my book, modernmillions.ai, it basically talks about, excuse me, making millions, saving millions, and protecting millions, all with use of artificial intelligence. So you're preaching to the choir. I completely believe in artificial intelligence. I know it can help so many entrepreneurs out there. I really think almost all entrepreneurs, all the people who are listening or our clients should be thinking they should be AI first, because if you're not an AI first company, you're going to be behind the times. And on top of that, if you're an employee somewhere, you better learn AI or you're going to be in trouble, just like we've talked about. This has been an awesome episode, man. This has been fun. One last time, how does someone get a hold of you if they're interested?
Yeah, they can search Ricky Ho on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow, connect. Yeah, happy to share any insights.
Sweet. All right. This is Ken of French. Speaking on behalf of What's Ken of French Thinking. Thank you, Ricky Ho.
Thank you so much.